What's up, everybody? I'm John Middlekauff. You know what I need you to do. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got content for days reacting to every NFL game all the time, every single day. Subscribe, like the videos. Let's go. Okay, we got some breaking news on the internet streets. Well, it's probably an hour plus old, but I just saw it. That Adam Schefter reports Raiders have made calls. They are open for business. They're doing what the Miami Dolphins should be doing with Tyreek Hill. Second round pick and a little bit extra compensation. So maybe a late round pick. Davante Adams can be yours. Davante is countered by requesting a trade per rap sheet. Before we dive into the logistics and the semantics of this all, I'm a Davante Adams guy. I left Fresno State to work in Philadelphia. He came right behind me. I followed his career as closely as you can and admire everything he's accomplished and the way it started for him. He was forced to redshirt because of academics and became a star and got, for whatever reason, falls to the second round because people think he's slow and smaller school, and absolutely dominated. And I also understand, I've said this before, a gravitational pull to quote unquote go closer to home. But in a business like football, so many things are out of your control. And he got very, very lucky that he was drafted by the Green Bay Packers and got to play the majority of his career with Aaron Rodgers and through work of his own. And it did not start well for him, become a star in the NFL. But he also chose to go to the Raiders. And this is going to be like, Middlekauff, you just hate the Raiders. No, I'm just speaking facts. I turn 40 next year. The last time this franchise won a playoff game, I was a junior in high school. Think about that. This is a franchise that not only doesn't have success, they don't sniff success. They, along with a couple other teams, have kind of been the pillar of dysfunction during the internet age. A time when the NFL has blown up. It was already big. It's gone to a different stratosphere. And they are on a short list of franchises where you go to not have success. And he signed up to go there. And 2 years and 4 games later, it feels over. So no one, starting with him, should be shocked. Now, I get it. You have belief in yourself. You think you can change stuff. You go to reunite with Derek Carr. A year later, Derek Carr was on a different team. And now, a year and 4 games later, it looks like Davante's going to be on a different team. So is Davante, like, you sign up for this situation, like, this kind of is the Raiders, you know, and especially where he came from. Just one of the most consistent, normal organizations in the league who have been winning since I was in elementary school. And they will probably keep winning as I go into my 50s one day, because that's what happens with the Packers. And I think he learned quickly, like, man, like, obviously got a lot of money, no state income tax. He built a big house in Vegas. Like, I don't think he regrets it necessarily from a standpoint of family, financially, but from a football standpoint, it's been a fucking disaster, an absolute train wreck. And when you go to a team and they trade a lot for you, and you go to dysfunction, it doesn't necessarily matter for him, but for the Raiders, they signed this guy up who's still a high-level player, and he's not worth as much. So, like, that sucks. I mean, one thing the Miami Dolphins could do if they want to flip Tyreek Hill, they can get a first-round pick for the guy. The Raiders, will see what the compensation ends up being, and I think part of the complication with the overall situation is, I just looked, the Bills, the Ravens, and the Chiefs have like no cap space. Now, you can change things around. You can, manipulate guys' contracts on your own team. But like the 3 teams that you just go, Bills, Ravens, Chiefs. Mark Davis just had the Kansas City Chiefs not only inhabit his locker room and practice facility for a week during the Super Bowl, they won a Super Bowl in his building. Al Davis probably turned over in his grave. You cannot trade Davante Adams to them, and they won't. Like, it would take Kansas City offering several first rounders and paying, 2 way more than anyone else would even dream of paying to get them to entertain that. And they're not in a position to do that. The Ravens financially, I do think that would be really fun to watch. Same with the Bills. It is a little complicated. And I also think what's complicated for those two teams is like second round picks are really, really valuable. That's where you find cheap starters. And you look at those teams are paying a lot of people a lot of money starting with their quarterbacks. And the way you continue to sustain success around a high level quarterback is to draft well. The reason the Chiefs keep winning is because they've drafted well the last couple of years. Like Ryden Pacheco, Ryden Rashee Rice, all the defenders. Those guys are cheap, cheap talents. Trent McDuffie. Flip Tyreek Hill for him. And now you get in this situation, if you're the big boys, you're like, is Davante Adams, if we do this, for sure getting us over the edge? I think Buffalo looks around like, yeah, we played a bad half, but we like where our offense stands. Got a lot of weaponry. Offense ain't our issue, it's defense. And Baltimore goes, listen, we've invested in Zay Flowers. Likely he's coming on. We got Derrick Henry. That one you'd have to think long and hard about because they were so close last year. Their high end these last couple of weeks has looked so good. But those teams really value high draft picks because they need them. And the Saints were another team that jumped to mind. Obviously, Derrick's there. Keith Williams, who recruited Davante at Fresno State, who he calls like a mentor father figure, is the wide receiver coach in New Orleans. They, like those teams, have no cap space. And you go, well, is wide receiver really their need? It would make that offense really potent. Davante with Shaheed and Olave would be, and their defense is already good. If they can make that happen, I think they would be a team to sniff around. The Rams, to me, they're just they got too much going on. Given they're 1-3 with all the injuries, historically, they would be a team 100% be interested. They don't make much sense. Obviously, the 49ers, another aggressive team that has like 7 wide receivers. Somehow, the only one good one so far has been Juwan Jennings. Debo's been good too, but they're paying Brandon Ayuk $30 million for like 7 catches. Yeah, it's going to be interesting, man. And this is why, as a football player, the importance, once you don't control coming in the draft. So it's never anyone's fault unless you're an undrafted free agent and you have some options. You just go where you're picked. But if you ever get to the point where you hit free agency, when you are a player like Davante and you can control a trade, you got to be very careful doing that because your career is not 20 years. That's not the way the NFL works. Most like high-end legendary players are playing like 12 to 15 years. And some of those years on the back end aren't pretty. So when you're in the prime of your career, in the peak of your powers, you choose to go to a place where dysfunction reigns king and it dominates and it permeates the building. This is what happens. This is what happens. And hopefully he still has several high-end years left. And this doesn't, like we saw the best of Davante years ago, but he did sign up for this and put himself in this situation. And now they've all acknowledged, like, this ain't working out. This doesn't make any sense. Let's go somewhere else. Well, if you have any control, which this isn't the NBA, but he's lucky. Like, the only teams that are going to be interested are teams with quarterbacks, teams that want to make playoff pushes. The random teams, Carolina ain't trading for him, right? You wouldn't think that the shitty teams won't, but you never know in the NFL. And that's the thing. Like, everyone's trying. Everyone's working hard. Like, everyone, like some of the teams with the most cap space right now. The Niners have a ton. Cleveland, they don't make any sense. Detroit, defense is more of an issue. New England, would they just get a guy for next year with Drake May? That's the thing with the NFL. And it's like, Davante, you signed this contract. Now you don't have any control. Washington, like, does Washington make some sense? Jaden Daniels, put him with McLaurin and Brian Robinson. All of a sudden, you're like, damn, that offense is legit. They'd also tell you we don't want to be too aggressive, too fast. Like, that second round pick in 5 years could be his Debo or DK Metcalf, which we get for cheap and we keep building it. It's a hard balance. There is no right or wrong answers. I always lean be aggressive. I don't think anyone will ever fault you in football as a GM, your fans for pedal to the metal, taking big swings. So you could argue Washington is a team. Like if you tell me we wake up Wednesday morning and he's on the Washington Commanders, you talk about a team. I mean, they'll whether this is true or not, we'll see how the season plays. I don't know if their defense ultimately is going to be good enough. If I was a Commander fan, I'd start thinking the division. I'd be like the Eagles and the Cowboys. What? They ain't playing with us. How are the Eagles stopping this offense? You see that defense? You see the injuries the Cowboys have on defense? Well, we play you guys in the parking lot right now. So this is fun. I think the best part about this is a guy who can immediately make a team, whether it be a contender, put them off like, God, they're going to be a tough outcome December. And one of those teams we're like, are we sure they're a playoff team? Could help your quarterback get to another level. I mean, this guy, if you get him in the next couple days, I mean, we got 3 months of football left. I mean, he can give you 10, 12 touchdowns. Like that's pretty big boost. Pretty big boost. Because I've been on the other end where he's like, we need a wide receiver. Let's look at the practice squad lists. You're like, I don't know about any of these guys. Then there's Davante Adams. Now you gotta pay the price. But and the other thing is with Davante is you're getting a guy who is under contract next year. So you're not buying a free agent that sometimes happens at the trade deadline. Like when I look at Davante, if it doesn't go well, there is an out after this season, but he's still under contract the next couple of years. Now it's complicated. His cap hit is massive. It's like $44 million, which obviously no team is going to have Davante on their team in 2025 with his cap hit at $44 million. But if you are, let's just use Washington as an example. That's the type guy you could give like a 2-year, $60 million extension to, guarantee every penny, and keep him on the team. Like that's the benefit of having the cheap quarterback is boom. So something to keep an eye on. Davante Adams watch.